Welcome to the African Youth Empowerment Series, where we speak on the role of the youth in the development of Africa. Today we are here with Founding Director of Labour and Economic Development Research Institute of Zimbabwe, Dr. Godfrey Kanyenze. Sorry, I had written Mr.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm still a mister.
Nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you. It's nice to be on your forum, on your platform.
Dr. Kanyenze, you've done so much. You have such a decorated career. We wanted to hear more from you as to some of the business you started, some of the academic achievements you've come across, some of the companies you have worked for, and some of the initiatives and, I guess, companies and organizations that you started and partnered with through your very decorated career.
Oh, thanks so much. There's a lot to speak to. I will just try and give you a thumbnail summary. I completed my first degree at the University of Zimbabwe in economics in 1985. My first job in 1986 was for the then Central Statistical Office as a statistician. So I worked there briefly, and then I moved to the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. They wanted someone to assist them in terms of the economics department, setting up the economics department, and basically assisting them with the economic analysis, participating in the national processes that involved economic decision making. So that was my second job. So I've been in that job for since 86 up to September 2003. In 1988 September, I then decided after two and a half years working experience to go, for a master's degree. So it's very important, to, especially when you are involved at a high level, to be well endowed, to be well grounded in terms of the theoretical, grounding in economics. So I decided to go for a master's, and fortunately, I got a British Council scholarship to go and study a master's in economics at the University of Kent at Canterbury. Then I came back, worked again in the ZCT economics department, and then I decided to go back to do my PhD, and that was December 1990, just after marrying, because I realized that the PhD was going to be a long haul, and I needed some companionship. Then I decided to marry. And then after that I went back to UK, this time at the University of Sussex. I got a scholarship from the Swedish International Development Agency, SIDA. It was a special program. That was the time when there was a lot of controversy in the 80s around the World Bank's economic structural adjustment programs. So what they did basically was to invite applicants from 7 African countries where SIDA had an existence. So eventually there were 2 of us from Zimbabwe, 2 from Zambia, 2 from Kenya, and 1 from Tanzania, that were working together around structural adjustment issues, but with different areas of specialization. So after my PhD study, I came back, and again we're working for the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. But what is very interesting, coincidentally, is that Zimbabwe then was implementing from 1991 its own structural adjustment program at the behest of the IMF and World Bank. So when we came back, because of the controversy around structural adjustment, the lack of consultation around the program, and the hardships that were associated with the program, especially given that the program believed in markets, the very fact that markets should actually determine the fate of the economy. It entailed basically cutting back on expenditures, especially in the social sector, education, healthcare, and other sectors, basically in order to manage the public debt, the budget deficit. So as a result, basically there was a lot of austerity that was implemented as part of the program, associated with the program, liberalization of pricing, as well as liberalization of trade. That was an important aspect, which resulted basically in a lot of retrenchments, people losing their jobs. It created liberalization of prices, and the reference to markets basically resulted in high levels of inflation. As a result of all these hardships, basically Zimbabweans were in anger. There's no program that is incited as much public, outcry as the structural adjustment program in Zimbabwe. So when I came back, I came in the context against the context of structural adjustment. That was now in 1994. That's when I came back after completing my PhD. So together with other people at ZCTU, and in particular the then Secretary General that you are familiar with, Morgan Shangirai, was my boss then. So we agreed basically that we need to undertake a comprehensive review of the structural adjustment program and come up with alternatives, offer alternatives to government in terms of a more humane approach to development. So as a result, basically we started a comprehensive sector-by-sector analysis of the impact of structural adjustment, and then we offered solutions in terms of alternatives. We call this book project Beyond ESAP, Beyond the Economic Structural Adjustment Program. We completed the study in 1995, which coincided with the ZCTU Congress in August. So we presented the findings at the ZCTU Congress that was held in Mutare in 1995. It was quite interesting. For the first time at the ZCTU Congress, the focus was not on elections. The focus was on issues. The focus was on policies. And I think it was quite interesting in the sense that we organized a pre-Congress seminar to basically discuss the implications of social adjustment and basically offer alternatives. You may want also to know that we could not work alone, of course. So we had commissioned work. We invited key persons that were involved in various sectors, be it agriculture, be it manufacturing, be it infrastructure, etc., to assist us with the deep analysis and share their own experiences and expertise in their particular respective areas. So we came up with this very interesting, path-breaking, because no organization in Zimbabwe had actually come up, or dare I say the region, had come up with a program that challenged the mainstream economic policies that were being implemented and came up with comprehensive solutions. So this was seen basically largely as a path-breaking book project, and as a result, other countries in the region approached us. They asked us to extend that analysis on the basis that structural adjustment was not being implemented in Zimbabwe alone. Other countries in the region were actually implementing structural adjustment programs. Even in South Africa, even though they did not call it structural adjustment, they had what they call the growth employment program GEAR, which basically was steeped in neoliberal principles. So as a result, we also now undertook a follow-up study, what we called ANSWER, and those are the books on ANSWER. I'll share with you some of the publications that we did around this. So we decided then to commission researchers across the region to basically look at how structural adjustment is played out in each of those countries, and come up with also humane strategies. We call it towards human-centered development, because development is about people. So quite often we forget it. We think that it's about things, it's about output, it's about inflation, because we have tended to, mainstream economics has tended to focus so much on the instruments and targets like inflation, like employment, to the extent that we forget that it's about people. It's about improving the well-being of ordinary people. So essentially, that's why we called it an alternative to structural adjustment towards a human-centered development strategy in SADC, in Southern Africa. So we did that. What is quite interesting is that our research, both if you look at the Beyond ESAP and also the follow-up beyond ESAP in the region, the focus basically was not just on theoretical research. It was on an applied research, on what we call action research that is targeted at influencing policy making. So our strategy basically stood on three legs, like an African pot. We've got the research and analysis, which basically resulted in the development of the books. And then the second leg basically entailed education, training, and conscientization. So once we've done the book, we developed education materials so as to conscientize the people around the impact, so that they can also share their own experiences. Use this as a platform to really engage in policies that the region was actually implementing. So we came up with education materials derived from the book, and also we trained the trainers from the different countries, educators around this, who would go out into their countries, respective countries and organizations, to train around the ideas of the book. In essence, an alternative pro-people development strategy. So essentially, that is the second pillar of the strategy. And the third one basically is advocacy and engagement. Once you've got the book, once you've got the instruments, then you want to engage policymakers. You want to engage the key stakeholders, be it government, be it labor, be it business, be it civil society, be it youth, your group, be it women, and other basically key stakeholders in the economy, and engage them so that we come up with a consensus. Because development is about consensus building. We have to agree what is wrong and map out a way forward that is actually influenced by our own lived experiences and the strategies that we think can assist us. We'll talk about that later on. So essentially, my work has been very, very pragmatic, very practical, very applied, rather than just theoretical. Even though we're undertaking research, we also insisted that that research must be steeped in the lived realities and also must influence the policies that our governments were implementing, not only in Zimbabwe, but also in the region. So as a result of this study, we came up with a project which was coordinated by one of my colleagues, Timothy Kondo. It's called ANSWER, Alternatives to Neoliberalism in Southern Africa. So basically, he was now responsible for the rollout program for the research, additional research, targeting the other countries that we had not covered: Mauritius, Zambia, Malawi, Namibia, South Africa, and also basically following the three legs that I highlighted: research and analysis, education, training, and conscientization, and advocacy and engagement. So basically, that process has been going on. It's one of the things that we decided to do. In addition, given that the structural adjustment programs had not been driven by broader stakeholder participation, we insisted then, the last chapter in our Beyond ESAP recommended the establishment of an institutional framework, like in South Africa they already had in NEDLAC, the National Economic Development and Labor Council, which basically brings together all the key stakeholders to discuss the policies in various areas and basically come up with the consensus on the way forward. So we also decided that this is a good experience where Zimbabwe should also learn and develop its own institutional mechanism for stakeholder participation in economic decision making. You may be aware that the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness insisted that for any program to be successful, it must have national ownership. National ownership comes from participation. If the youth are not involved, they don't feel that the program that is being implemented addresses their issues. They don't feel a sense of belonging. If the women are not consulted or involved, they feel marginalized, as well as other groups, be that people living with disabilities, be that business people or labor. So the alternative is basically steeped, firstly, in the realization that there is need for national ownership of programs. If they are to succeed, that is a big lesson from experience. Then there has to be mutual accountability. The parties, once they've agreed in terms of the program to follow, they must be mutually accountable to each other. That's another important aspect. Alignment. They have to align what they do, for maximum impact. Align whatever you do with the program that you've agreed on. And then, of course, accounting for results, where you don't just implement things, but at the end of the day, you have to review to see whether you are achieving the objectives or the targets that you've set. So essentially, we've got the first aspect of national ownership, alignment, harmonization. You have to harmonize everything according to the agreed programming. then mutual accountability, and accounting for themselves. Those are the five principles basically that are critical if programs are to be steeped in the aspirations of the people that they are supposed to serve. Those people that are supposed also to benefit from those programs. So that basically summarizes the work that we've been doing. We've undertaken a lot of research in other areas, be it privatization, be it the economy, how the economy is performing, the review of national budgets. We've looked at the poverty situation in our countries. We've had the privilege with your father to participate in the development of the 5 human development reports with the UNDP. The first one was on poverty, the second one was on globalization, the third one was on HIV/AIDS, the fourth one I think was on gender.
And
so
Ministry and Public Service as well.
Yes, Ministry of Public Service was also one of the key stakeholders. So we worked with it was a tripartite, Ministry of Labour, then the Institute of Development Studies, where your father worked at the University of Zimbabwe, and also the UNDP.
That's right. As a sub-editor for the Human Development Report in Zimbabwe, what did that report teach you that you could pass on to the youth? What experiences from the past could we pass on to our current generation so as to not only not repeat the past mistakes, but make sure that we continue to develop as a nation?
The most critical issue about the human development approach is that it is an alternative to the neoliberal policies that basically give preeminence to the market and basically say the market will determine. We are saying that if you leave everything to the market, it results in inequality, it results in growth that doesn't benefit the people, ordinary people, it results in exclusion, it results in inequality, and it can actually result in exacerbated poverty levels. So the human development approach it gives focus to people. People are at the center of the approach. So it's a pro-people, pro-poor approach, which basically emphasizes the importance of inclusion, ensuring that whatever you do from a development point of view, you must ensure that all usually the marginalized groups like women, the youth like yourself, people living with disability, minorities, the migrants are also integrated in your development framework. They participate in the process of development. They are empowered. You build their human capacities. It could be through training, through, for example, skills development, through redistribution of assets. For example, like what is happening in Zimbabwe, redistribution of land. It's very important to ensure that marginalized groups like women, youth, people living with disability are deliberately targeted so that they too can access that key national resource, which enables them to participate in production. Because once you don't have ownership of the key resource, you cannot participate in the development process. Secondly, if you can't find a job, then you can't participate in it. You can't benefit from development. So essentially, development must create jobs. Growth must be associated with employment creation, which then allows you, once you've got a job, you can do all the other things. You can then use your income to buy other things that you may not necessarily have to produce, isn't it? You may have to buy, your food, your clothing, everything else that you may need to subsist. So essentially, employment becomes a critical aspect. Linking, in fact, it's the nexus, it's the link between growth and poverty reduction. So in a human development approach, the focus is not just on redistribution of assets to ensure that you even out the opportunities. You ensure that everyone has got an equal opportunity to participate and to work themselves out of poverty. That's the first aspect. And then the second aspect is to ensure that the jobs are created in such a manner that all the groups are actually included. They participate in employment. They are actually also beneficiaries in the sense that they are actually involved in productive employment. That's very critical. Remunerative employment, which is also productive. What the ILO refers to as decent work. So that becomes also very critical if you are to reduce poverty. So essentially, there are 3 factors that are critical. If you want to reduce poverty, the growth factor is necessary for the economy to grow, but growth alone is not sufficient. because you can have growth patterns that basically do not necessarily reduce poverty. You can have jobless growth. There's growth like what has happened with the Africa Rising narrative, where the African economies have grown beyond 5%, the tradition of 3%, experiencing growth rates of above 5%, but the majority of the people are still wallowing in poverty. So you have to be deliberate about it, about capacitating people, about building human capabilities to ensure that they can participate in growing the economy and in also benefiting from the benefits of growth. So that is essential aspect of the human development approach.
Okay, and wanted to ask you, as a member as a person who used to be on the Reserve Bank board, who understands how banking in Zimbabwe works, looking at the banks in Zimbabwe, what structures and strategies do you believe need to be implemented by our local banks in terms of trying to ensure liquidity in the country and to make money more affordable, especially for young entrepreneurs and startup businesses, and also in terms of regulating interest rates? What can these banks do to also look to improve the entrepreneurial space for the youth? And
okay, thanks, Tino. I think a useful starting point is to acknowledge that Zimbabwe's legacy is one of enclave dual growth. We inherited a dual economy, a relatively developed and modernized formal sector, employing just 15% of 20% at independence of the labor force, whilst the remaining 80% basically were either in the subsistence rural sector or informally employed. So the majority of the economy of the population in Zimbabwe, even up to now as we talk, 68% of the people are actually in agriculture. So we haven't really transformed the economy. So what it means, therefore, in terms of the economy that we inherited at independence, is that even the question you have asked on financial intermediation was just located in the formal sector. Just this small sector, which is mainly urban. So the majority of people in the rural areas don't have access to banks. And this is where the majority of the youth are. This is where the majority of the women are. This is where the 68% currently of the population reside. So essentially, if you don't have access to financial intermediation, that determines who is going to grow and who is not going to grow. So it means, therefore, that your development model is excludes the majority of the people, because they cannot have access to the banking sector, to the savings that have been intermediated through the financial savings sector. So what is important, the challenge, therefore, with the traditional banks that we have in Zimbabwe is that they are servicing a very narrow sort of constituency or segment of the population. So it's essentially the majority of the people. And what has happened over time is that with structural adjustment, they've actually cut back even on some of the outlying branches to the extent that they've even become more concentrated. So unfortunately, therefore, the majority of the people cannot access financial intermediation, which is so critical, which is the critical dimension also, which determines who grows and when, how you grow, the pace at which you grow. Then secondly, the practices of the banks are such that if you go to a bank today and you want to borrow, the first thing they ask is for collateral. Do you have assets that can be used as collateral against which you can borrow? The majority of young people like yourself, the majority of women who don't have access to assets. Most of the assets are actually because of our paternalistic system. They are actually registered in the name of the husband. So the wife cannot use the asset that is in the husband's name to borrow. So it therefore implies that they are excluded from the financial intermediation mechanisms. So are the youth. So what needs to be done now is to come up with more creative approaches that can allow youth to also access financial intermediation. That's where microfinance institutions come in, where they suspend the requirement for collateral. You can use basically group lending. You come as a group, you are given first Tino, and then I know when Tino repays, I can also borrow. I can also get money as Tino is repaying. So the advantage of group lending is that you no longer need the bank to supervise. the members of the group can actually peer review each other. They can put pressure on each other, because I know my accessing the resources will depend on you also repaying. So I will pressurize you to repay. These are the approaches, as you know, in Bangladesh. The Grameen Bank has been one of the outstanding examples, where basically peer reviewing, where microfinance has actually been used to reach out to women and other groups that are usually excluded from traditional banking. So I think this is a very critical aspect that we need to look at. At the moment, our microfinancial institutions are not well developed. They are not well capitalized. So as a result, there isn't much capital that youth can access from these critical institutions, which are more amenable for the young people to access capital, for the women to access capital, for the poor to access capital. So we need to really develop this sector. This microfinance, banking sector has to be really developed. And also we need to come up with more inclusive approaches. Thank heavens, now we are in the day of mobile banking and so forth. So the mobile banks have really reached, extended the outreach of financial intermediation to even far-flung areas. So that is also benefited. So riding on mobile banking is also critical in terms of ensuring that those that have traditionally been excluded can also be included. So that is also very critical in terms of reaching out. Yes, the Reserve Bank has been promoting also small business units within banks, traditional banks. But the problem, of course, is that they still use the traditional strategies where you need collateral security for you to access money. So that's why I'm emphasizing the importance of the microfinance institutions.
Okay. And that is very interesting how you mentioned peer review strategies and the development of things like mobile banking. That is really embracing technology, looking forward for the youth. But another aspect besides accessing finance is, can these banks also create jobs for people in this, especially for when we're looking at it from the youth?
The banks have got a special role. They create jobs directly in terms of the people that are employed by the bank, but also indirectly through the projects that they are funding. So the more inclusive they become, the more they can reach out in terms of the number of people that can benefit and the jobs that can be created downstream. So I think this is very critical. The employment multipliers come also from the projects and also the inclusion of as wide a spectrum of stakeholders as possible. The young people, the women, people living with disability, people in marginal areas and so forth. I mean, once you reach out deliberately to these areas, then you are actually creating greater opportunities for employment.
How do young people access finance in terms of what steps must the youth take in order to access money for loans?
Obviously, you need to develop a concept. You have to come up with a concept that is sellable, that is feasible, a viable project that you can come up with. That area, I think, requires a lot of support in terms of developing the capabilities. It may look simple, but it's not that simple. You really need technical capacity for youngsters to be able to develop bankable concepts or bankable projects. That's the first starting point. Also they require a lot of technical things that you must be able to map out your market, to understand who are the competitors in the area that you want to go into. You must have an idea in terms of the cash flow projection, what you are likely to get every month out of that. That is also required, which is very critical for the acceptance of your project. It's a viable project. There are technical areas that are also required. The capacity to organize that business. Normally it's required to see the structure of your company or your project, who is going to be within the directorship, what employees are you going to come up with in terms of skills, your understanding also of the economy in which you're operating, the challenges that you are likely to face. All those aspects are very critical in terms of coming up with a successful project that is bankable, that can be supported. So youth need to develop that capacity, or other stakeholders, including the banks themselves, need to actually come up with business development programs to assist the young people to basically understand business. Because in Zimbabwe, we grew up in this culture of being employees. So very few people have got that capacity and understanding of what entrepreneurship is all about. So we really need to nurture that entrepreneurial spirit amongst especially the young.
Are you aware of any education programs that help youth sort of develop like a business plan, business model, and to be able to position themselves to be able to access finance from like banks as well?
Yes, they are there, but they are in the market space. You have to pay. There are quite a number of business development initiatives, such as Embretech, which was started by UNDP. The ILO had a program: start your business, improve your business, expand your business, generate business ideas, but you still have to pay. So that's the major stumbling block, or you can say that's the major sort of factor that basically undermines the participation of young people, in the sense that most of these initiatives are out in the marketplace, and the young people cannot easily access these because they don't have the wherewithal, they don't have the income or money to pay for these products. There are various products, but the problem also is that they are fragmented. So you need government basically to come up, whether it's Ministry of Youth, to come up with a strategy of coordinating these initiatives, because they are scattered across government departments, they are scattered across various bilateral agencies and actually other civil society groups that are participating, including youth initiatives. But however, their impact is still very limited.
And besides the aspect of youth development programs in terms of business, are you aware of any opportunities in terms of employment or building experience for the youth that would really be helpful in terms of developing our youth to also be employees as well, or to get jobs, and that you can mention of?
Oh yes, there are so many. They are scattered all over the place. They are not properly coordinated. That's the problem. They are not part of a coordinated, comprehensive system. As you are probably aware, most universities now insist on attachments, taking their children, their students, their pupils out for a year or so on attachments, on learnerships. There are some organizations like Silvera House that offer learnerships through traditional apprenticeship training. Historically in Zimbabwe, with a very strong apprenticeship system, where youngsters were trained in various trades. But however, over time, as a result of a combination of factors, including the economic downturn, the closure of companies, most of these opportunities have been reduced. So that's one of the major challenges here. Excuse
me. So how can people get in touch with you and your organization?
Well, we are here in Belgravia, and interestingly, we are very much interested in assisting the youth. We also every year have got a youth attachment program with the universities, where we take five students from universities every year to basically work with unions that are affiliated to the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions, and basically for that year they are supervised, they work with us, they participate in our research, they participate in collection of data, they also participate in our training programs, they participate in all that we are doing. For instance, I did mention that we did the Beyond ESAP, and then we did the regional follow-up. What we did in 2011 was to update now the Beyond ESAP. Because the Beyond ESAP study was done in 1986, so 1995, 96. Now in 2011, we decided to update, because as you are aware, a lot of things happened to this economy. The economy has gone through structural regression. We've gone through persistent deindustrialization and informalization, to the extent that 94.5% of all jobs are now informal. So we've got a completely different economy to the one that we analyzed in 1996. So we decided to update that study and analysis sector by sector. And then we came up with, I'll give you a document, the book that we've done. It's called Beyond the Enclave. That's in 2011. Last year, we decided also to look at the nature of the state. Because the nature of the state is very critical. The type of state that we have, it can either be a predatory state, in essence, a state that is captured by elites. In South Africa, they talk a lot about state capture, isn't it? Elites can capture the state for their own selfish interests, rent-seeking behavior. So we did a study where we benchmarked the experiences of 6 regional economies, namely Angola, Botswana, Malawi, Namibia, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. We benchmarked against the developmental states of East Asia, the states that were able to break the barriers of underdevelopment and modernize it in a relatively short space of time. So we looked at what these countries have done. Essentially, the issue of a cohesive state, the issue of a visionary state, the issue of taking a national agenda as a hegemonic national project where stakeholders voluntarily actually participate in the development discourse. So we looked at what are the deficits in each country, what are the democratic deficits, what are the deficits in terms of reorienting the state towards a developmental trajectory. So this is the book that we've also done last year. It's called Towards Democratic Developmental States in Southern Africa.
And in that book we find all this information, but we still wanted to find out directly how we can get in touch with some of your organizations, like online, for people in the diaspora as well, who are also trying to get back to Zimbabwe to come and make an impact.
Yes, thanks to you. We are on the internet. www.ledris.zw. So you can get us on so co.zw. So we're on the internet, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we are interactive. So basically, anyone who wants to engage us or to find out more about Ledris, you can actually go onto our website.
Okay, that is great, because I'm sure a lot of Zim diaspora would want to come back to that program where you pick five students and you have them engage in the different sectors.
There's so much demand. This year alone, we interviewed over 40 students for the 5 slots.
That's amazing.
So so there's so much demand and very few spaces, as I've indicated here.
But I'm sure with more broadcasting, it's better to have a situation in Zimbabwe where you have many applying and we get the best results than have a situation where few are applying because they have given up. So,
well, we encourage them. We also have a lot of programs like on socio-economic rights, the right to water, the right to healthcare, the right to education, the right to employment. People don't hardly realize that these are rights that are judiciable. We can challenge government, especially with respect to our new constitution, which has got a very strong bill of rights, just like the South African constitution. So basically, we are training also various groups, including youth, so that they understand that the right to employment is a right, the right to education is a right, the right to healthcare is a right, the right to housing is a right. That should be demanded of our governments. So we've got programs around this as well, educative programs to conscientize the stakeholders, whether it's women's groups, trade unionists, youth groups, and so forth. We work with universities and other groups as well on these socio-economic rights.
Okay, thank you for appearing on our platform for African Youth Empowerment. We hope you and your organization can attend our forum on the 12th of May in South Africa.
Certainly, once you invite us, Tino, we'll be the first to